You won your first match when you were 13, 20 years at the Davis Cup, Tennis Hall of Fame in December of 2023. I remember you said that when you're on the court, you always feel like you're playing for India and you always feel that you're Indian. What this audience perhaps doesn't know here, that while you moved to the US over 40 years ago, you've still retained your Indian passport. Why is that?
Well, I think the most important thing is that wherever you are in the world, wherever I've traveled, wherever I've had the good fortune to have played and fortune to meet the kind of people that I did meet, you're always going to be Indian. It's always inherent in you. It's in your heart. It's in your head. Wherever I've played, the flag was flown, the anthem was sung, Indians were there, and all I had to do was play 60% of my tennis because they got me through the other 40%.
Well, and that truly does deserve a big round of applause. But Mr. Amritraj, you know, as you look back at your career today and all the ups and downs that you've seen, what do you believe, you know, you're going to be 72 in December this year. As you look back, what do you believe helped you get to where you are? What was it about the way that you played? What was it about the way that your parents raised you that helped you get to where you are?
Well, first of all, you didn't have to bring up my age at this point. But
you look great, by the way, at 72.
Thank you. I think the most important part of my growing up has always been my parents. Actually, as I always say, all the good in me came from them, the bad in me I picked up along the way. But the fact that I grew up not very well, I was unhealthy as a child growing up, and I was in school and so on and so forth, and my mother played that very vital role of going to school for me and actually taking notes and come and teach me in the hospital and trying to recover and so on and so forth. I always make a joke of the fact that for one set of school fees, both of us were educated. So I think when I look back at that and what they did for me, beyond the call of duty of parents, is what gave me the life that I've ended up having and put me into tennis actually to get over my health, and then it took me on a completely different journey. I wanted to be a doctor.
You wanted to be a doctor?
I wanted to be a doctor. I thought it's the greatest profession of all. You're saving lives and so on. Finally, my mother said to me, hit enough tennis balls in the court and someone will give you a doctorate.
You know, and that's an unusual thing. And yes, you could have gotten a doctorate as well on the tennis court, but that's an unusual thing for Indian parents to say, don't be a doctor, go out there and play tennis.
I think it was for my health more than anything else, and to be able to have some retention power and so on and so forth. And then many years later, I would speak in overseas major colleges and schools, which I was amazed that they would invite me to do it. Had they known my early years of being in school, they wouldn't have done it. But they were right again.
You know, as you look at India today, as you look at India from the perspective and the lens of a global Indian, what gives you hope? What gives you confidence? What gives you optimism about the India story?
I think the main difference has become that India is now a brand. It's a brand. Made in India is a brand. Made in India is what people want. They want people to be investing in India. They want people to come to India. The tourism part of India has to continue to grow. We have so much in different parts of India that is unbelievable. Each state has so much to offer, and the country as a whole. Most important of all, I think once people from overseas have come and experienced Indian hospitality, they don't want to go back. This is it. I've always asked people to come for the first time, come visit. I will guarantee you that you'll go back again. And that's what they've done. And I think to a great extent, India, our people on a normal basis are inclusive. They are always going to be hospitable. They'll invite you to their home at the drop of a hat. If you go play tennis anywhere in the world and you see two Indians on another tennis court or a badminton court or a squash court or anywhere else, they're going to say, okay, let's get together.
And that's how you survived your early years in the US.
I did. They didn't even know me at the time when I went to America for the first time. And needless to say, if I saw an Indian somewhere at some store, I would go up to him and say, listen, I'm coming to your house for dinner tonight. And whatever they had, dal, roti, whatever they had, I'm going to sit with them on the floor with their little baby. And, you know, they're also making their entry in the United States for the first time. And we eat together. And their growth has been my growth. And to a great extent, we have seen the incredible growth of India.
We do. We have seen the incredible growth of India, and your journey has been intertwined with it in many ways. But let's talk about what's happening in India as far as sports is concerned. And I know that there is a big disappointment that you carry about the way that things have turned out for Indian tennis. Why do you believe we've fallen off the map? What do you believe we need to do to get back on the map?
There's been great changes over the last 40, 50 years since the time I played, when I would go out on tour and people would often say to me the famous question, yes, you play tennis, but what do you do for a living? And I could never answer that question till I won my first big tournament. And that made a big difference, because then they stopped asking me, what do you do for a living? But the second question, which my late grandmother used to constantly ask me, I could never answer, and to this day I've never been able to answer. And she would always say to me, why do you have to go so far to lose? So I think when you look at sport in India, it has always been considered a sport. After tea, after your homework, come back in and do your homework. Your backpack is getting, bigger than you, that you're carrying to school. You have to give a priority to the fact that sport is going to take you further than you can possibly think. Nothing that I could have possibly done in my 7 decades of being around that could have bettered what this sport has given me. It has given me everything and more that I never would have expected. It has taken me places I never thought I would go, met people I never thought I would meet, and spent time in parts of the world I never thought I would be in, and continue to impress upon them the importance of who we are and where we came from. And I think those things are honestly vital for our own growth.
No, they're vital, but what do you believe is the need of the hour? What do we prioritize? How do we look at public-private partnership in the context of creating the sporting ecosystem, in the context of creating a sporting culture? You go back to the 1980s when you started the tennis academy with Britannia in Chennai. Leander Paes came through that academy as well. What do you believe we should focus on today?
Every sport is different. Every sport, the needs are different, the support family is different, everything is different. But the one thing that is constant is to have an incredible support system. That's number one. Number two is the fact that in our sport of tennis, if there's a young family with 2 children, boy and girl, 5 and 7 years old, and you say to the parent, forget about education, don't do it. Don't send them to school. Let them go into a sport of their choice. Let's see how good they get. They're going to represent India at the very highest level. You're going to do great. How many parents would say yes? It's a tough cultural, social issue. You're better off going to school, going to college, getting a job, making sure you're this and that, you get your own place, you have your own family. That's the growth. But no pain, no gain, right? If you don't take a chance, you're not going to have choices. So you have to focus on the fact that if you can, in fact, get to the top of the heap in a particular sport, the world is open to you.
Well, speaking of the world being open to you, one of the other beautiful aspects of your journey has been your ability to reinvent yourself. You've not just played tennis, you're an entrepreneur. You've worked with the UN as a messenger of peace under Kofi Annan for almost 7 years. You've been in the Bond movie. How many of you here know that Vijay Amritraj was in a Bond movie? How have you managed to continuously reinvent yourself? What keeps you going?
Excitement of challenges, new challenges. A new challenge for me is always acceptable. Impossible is nothing. We keep trying to get better. We want to be better tomorrow than we were today, irrespective of what your age is, as long as your health permits you to do that. I do believe that when you are challenged, you continue to strive to be better, irrespective of the age. My father played tennis singles at 85. And the only reason he stopped playing was because my mother finally got upset with him. You better stop. One of the best tennis matches I ever saw was my 8-year-old father playing against my 10-year-old second son. That's fun to watch. Yeah. Of course, my mother was cheering for my son, not for her husband. But my point is that if sport is part of your life, it can be part of your life throughout life. There is no retirement at that point. It's a question of what you want to challenge yourself with. The movie came to me when I was on the center court at Wimbledon, and the producers were watching the match. They wanted to have tea with me asked if I would do a screen test because they'd checked out several actors and they didn't come up with the right one, and said, would you consider doing a screen test at Pinewood Studios? And the reason I accepted doing the screen test for a laugh was because who can say they worked at Pinewood in the morning and playing at Wimbledon in the afternoon?
Yes, so, not too many.
Not many people who can say that. So I ended up doing it, got the role for 14 weeks, and I tried not to die in the picture, but they said you had to.
What was your favorite line?
Which actually Roger gave me during the chase sequence when he asked me, what have you learned so far? And I said, well, my backhand has improved.
Your backhand has improved.
He threw it in.
One of the other things that perhaps the audience here doesn't know is that you've actually spent a fair amount of time with President Trump, interviewing him. President Trump is keeping everyone on tenterhooks around the world at this point in time. What was your impression of him when you did that interview with him?
Well, we don't have enough time for that, but well, first of all, that was before his first term, yes. Right before his first term, and it's incredible to know that 8-10 years later that he's back at Trump too. Obviously, the whole thing is in a mix right now. It almost looks like a bowl of cereal. It's it's fruits and flakes, as we say, in the cereal, and it's a question of how you mix it up. And that's exactly what's happening. It depends on what fruit you want in it before you can actually enjoy it. I think that he is working to a point where he's trying to rush through things that have always been in his head. And whether people agree with him or not. That, to me, is an issue of a second-term president, because you're not actually due to run for election again.
Well, he says he may find a way of doing that.
That we'll have to wait and see.
That we'll have to wait and see. But as we look at the world today, and I ask you this from the context of the work that you did at the UN as a messenger of peace, as well as the retreat from multilateralism, from globalization, as it were today, the impact and the implications of that on sport, does that worry you?
Well, the great thing about sport, I always say it brings people together. It's only when you compete, it's only how fast you can run, how high you can jump, how good are you better than me, and if you beat me once, I'm never going to lose to you again. That's the challenge of sport, and it brings people together irrespective of what level of sport you're playing and irrespective of what sport it is. Especially in our sport, which has been an individual one against one, it's a question of making sure that if I lost to that guy today, I would never want to lose to him again, so what's it going to take for me to get better? But I do believe that sport can be always inclusive. It can bring people together, which means if there is a conflict, if there is a difficulty, if there's a problem, if there's something that doesn't quite get along with people, sport can bring it together. Sport and music are always universal, and it has no barriers.
Talking about the power and the impact of sport, the aspiration that India has of hosting the Olympics in 2036. And of course, it's a process and we will have to see how it plays out. But what do you make of that aspiration of wanting to play host to the Olympics? What do you believe we need to focus on?
Well, from a standpoint of the country, from the standpoint of all that we have to get in place over the next 10 years to be able to do it, I think we'll be ready. We're always able to do it. And the hospitality here will be second to none. And the success of the 2036 Games, if it came to India, will be second to none. No question about it in my mind. And I've seen most of these things happen in different parts of the world. I was very privileged to carry the Olympic torch at the 1988 Games in Seoul. I was very much a part of the ITF when I was actually helping them get tennis back into the Olympic Games. So I know what it takes. But at the same time, even if we are ready as a country to host the Olympics in 2036, we do have to make sure that we can make the top 5 in the medal count.
How do we make the top 5 in the medal count?
That's the challenge. That's the challenge. To me, that is the most important thing of having an Olympic Games. When you're ready to host it, except if you're Greece, where it started, that's fine. But if we are ready to host the Olympic Games in 2036, and we will do a spectacular job, 9 out of 10 things, no question. The one thing that matters most is to make sure that we make the top 5 in medal count. And that's the hardest part.
Easier said than done. How do we ensure that that is a reality? What's the execution roadmap?
Shireen, nobody said it was easy. I just said that's exactly what we need to do. We need to get there. Look, if we have what, 28 CEOs or the presidents of worldwide companies at this point, of the top 100, how did we get there? Because of the incredible hard work, the effort that was put in, the talent that we have, the brain power that we have, all of that went into making us arguably the greatest in the world in that particular area of work. I think we can do it in sport. We just have to focus more on disciplines that we can actually do well in. We can't do well in all disciplines.
Yeah, sure. Well, what do you think those disciplines should be? What should we focus on? What
I think we should
prioritize?
pick 10 or 12 disciplines. For example, we're always going to be good in archery, we're going to be good in shooting, we're going to be good in pistol shooting, we're going to be good in boxing, we're going to be good in some athletic events. I think some of the girls in female 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, I think we can be very good. I think the girls from Kerala have just shown beyond doubt that they can be spectacular. I don't think we should go after things that we're not going to be good at. There's a reason why runners from the African continent actually do as well as they do. There is a reason why the Caribbean boys and girls do as well as they do. So I think it's hard. I mean, you're not going to see, I'm not quite sure of this, but I'm not quite sure you're going to see a lot of American guys winning in chess. I'll pick our guys and girls anytime, any day and twice on Sunday. So I think you've got to pick the ones that you can be good in.
Yes, pick the right disciplines to go after and prioritize those. You know, you've talked about challenges, but I also want to talk to you about resilience. You talked about having to come out on court and, center court at Wimbledon by yourself and going out there in front of 25,000 people, dealing with your fears, perhaps even injuries, mental resilience, building resilience. What has it been like for you? How do you see things different today, where there is more of an acceptance to talk about these things, which perhaps wasn't the case when you were playing?
You're absolutely right. I think the great thing about individual sports is the challenge. You're out there by yourself. Any problem you have to fix it. Whoever's sitting up in the stands can't help you anymore. They can only tell you things before you get on, but once you get into the exam, you've got to do it. And you have to be good at it. That's the most important thing about that. The other issue is, I've always felt that every challenge is an opportunity. And pressure is a privilege. Not everyone is afforded that kind of pressure when you're playing Davis Cup and you're down to match point. How do you make that work in your favor when a billion people want you to win? It's on your back all the time. So the highs and lows can be quite high and low, and it's the way you deal with it. But walking on the center court at Wimbledon, everyone said to me, your legs are not going to move. So I did jump rope before I went on to center court. I jumped rope. And then when I went on the court, my legs didn't move. It's nerves that get a hold of you. The ball toss doesn't get up. The racket doesn't hit the ball where it's supposed to be hit. Till 4 games passes and you're able to get over the challenge of those nerves. But when you get over it, you get better. You get better in the head, between the years. And you see a lot of tennis guys, in my sport especially, it's easy for me to comment on it. We are good at it. We're good at it till 4-all. 3-all and 4-all and 5-all. But then, that last 5 meters, those last 2 games, that last 5 minutes, the good ones get better. And that's how they win the majors, win tournaments. So I think when we look at it, we have to pay attention to the fact that between the years needs training.
That needs training, and that is perhaps the winning mindset. I'm going to request the audience, if you do have a question for Mr. Amritraj, could you please raise your hands? We do have 2. We'll try and get a microphone across to you. If very quickly, if you can stand up, so it'll be easier for them to get a mic to you. Can we get a microphone across to them, or if you can come, till the microphone, the microphone gets there. What's been the greatest match that you've ever played in your mind?
Sir, mic 9.
The greatest match? Well, actually there were 3 that would define my career. One was when I was 13 and a half in high school and winning a major college tournament. which obviously I was not good enough to have even gotten into, but they allowed me to play in the college tournament. Ended up playing a 5-set match at 13 and a half years old in the month of May
In Chennai.
In Chennai. So you can imagine how hot it was. I was down 2 sets to love, cramps in my stomach, cramps in my fingers, and eventually winning in 5 sets. That's the first one, and they had the ugliest picture of me the next day in the paper. So, and for some reason my dad kept it. The second one was when I was 18 years old, and I ended up winning the National Championships of India for the first time after playing 19 sets over 2 days in Calcutta.
Wow.
Winning the singles and the doubles back to back. Semi-finals, 5 sets of singles and doubles, same on the final day on Sunday. And that put me as the number one in India and the number one in Asia, and then traveled overseas to compete with the best. Now, the first major win for me in the US was at the US Open, beating the great Rod Laver on center court at the US Open at Forest Hills, 5 sets, when nobody knew who I was and they'd not seen Indians do it. So for me, it was India on that center court that made the difference.
It was India on the center court as you took on Rod Laver. We do have the microphones. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Mr. Vijay. This is Savio.
Hi.
While the road, my question is, while the road got rough across your career, is there something, a statement or a learning that you learned out of your experience, or you read somewhere, or you've heard somewhere that is carved in golden letters on your heart?
Golden letters.
Wow. I think you learn it as you go along, obviously, and you challenge yourself as much as you possibly can. And Davis Cup, I think, made me mentally even stronger than I've ever known. And there are matches in Davis Cup that I've played where I've lost 11 pounds in weight during the course of the match, and you played 4 hours on one day, 5 hours the second day, and then you're coming out to play the number 7 or 8 player in the world when you're at the tail end of your career. He's 21 years old, and you have no chance of winning because the whole crowd knows that. He's had the day off. I've played 9 hours of tennis over 2 days. He wins the first set, he wins the second set, he's up 3-love, 40-love in the third set, and I'm able to squeeze out the third set. In the 10-minute break, they check me out. I've lost 11 pounds in weight. The doctor says, I can't let you go out to finish the match. That is the moment of truth, where you have a fork in the road and you decide which way you want to go. Whether you want to remain good or do you want to take a chance of being great. And that's the moment where you think back in time when I was growing up and feeling sick and have an IV in me and my mother telling me, you're going to be the best in this country. And so I went back out on the court. I said, keep the oxygen tank close by, make sure the ambulance is close by. The only way I'm coming off that court is on a stretcher. Ended up winning 5 sets, and we went to the final of the Davis Cup.
What a story. What an absolutely fabulous story. And thank you very much for retelling it for us. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Hi Vijay, my name is Indranil Seth and I have a question for you. Is Indian tennis going to see a similar revolution like Indian chess? If yes, when? Thank you.
Good question. I've honestly been waiting for it for a while. But we have to change certain thought processes, in my opinion, and focus on the thing that truly matters. And the thing that truly matters is to try to emulate the Federers and the Nadals and the Djokovic of today's generation, or now the Alcarazes and the Sinners. I think that's an important factor. You want to be the best you can possibly be to be able to represent India in Davis Cup and the Fed Cup, which is 4 singles matches and 1 doubles match. So staying focused on doubles doesn't really help. You have to make sure you're staying focused on the 4 singles that we need. So the focus from a young age, 5, 7, 8 years old, has to be on not taking no for an answer in singles. And I think we have to continue to work on that.
I'll take the last question. Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. What kept you going when odds were against you?
What kept you going when the odds were against you?
Again, it's a question of asking more of yourself, and you'll be amazed what you're capable of doing when you think you can't do it. And the great thing about sport, especially an individual sport like ours, you're going to ask more of yourself on most occasions. You're in trouble, you're hurt, you have a fever. I played with 101 fever, I played with injuries, I played before surgery, I played after surgery. But it's incredible what adrenaline can do for you. And that's why I'm so grateful to my fellow Indians, both in India and the ones who live overseas, 35 million of us who live overseas, who've always come to support what an Indian has done in a sport and lift him and the country up at the same time. And that's what they do, whether they like it or not, irrespective of whether they like the sport or not. So you're asking much more of yourself from within to lift you to a plane that you never thought you could get to. And that's the best way to beat the odds.